Okay, everybody, again, welcome to the channel. And what we're doing here, we're actually cleaning out a creek. We got some logs that a while back got dropped down into it, and we're gonna pull those logs out. And first off, I'd really like to thank you for taking the time to watch the channel. I sincerely appreciate it. Just in case my intro doesn't come out, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna restate what I had been going over before I got in the excavator, because I walked this just to show what we were gonna take out. And what I had gone over was this property back in the late 1800s. It actually belonged to a grocery store chain. I'm not sure which one or what it was called or any of that, but gotta be careful, these tree limbs. But anyway, it's way back in the 1800s, this dry creek that I'm working in front of right here. This was called, I'm hitting tree limbs. This was called Saul Creek. And Saul Creek has been here since, like I said, the late 1800s. And recently, somebody, if you look it up in Google Maps, somebody renamed it. Or didn't rename it, they rerouted it. And now, what was Saul Creek back in the 1800s is now, has no name. And the only thing that I can see, the only reason that would have been done was originally the head of Saul Creek. This is a dry running creek. This is a dry creek, with the exception of heavy rainfall events or rainy seasons, and then the creek will flow. But 99% of the time, this is a dry creek. No water on it. And they've had a couple of developers that wanted to put in home lots close by, and they wanted to reroute the creek. And that is one of the reasons why I think that the creek was allowed to be rerouted as a named creek, so that nobody could question how a housing development was put in on a creek, because that is a question that I cannot answer. I flat can't figure out how you can change the name of a creek. But they have changed the name, and I don't think that that's right. What they did is they removed it. They removed the name from right here, this stretch of it, and this was the headwaters of the creek, or where it began. And they moved it down to a tributary that's about 1/8 of a mile from here. And if I can fight it, I will fight it, but I'm pretty sure it was the government that allowed it. The other thing they did, this area back 45 years ago, this was not in the 100-year floodplain. And you've heard I'm sure everybody's heard all the horror stories about FEMA and everything else. Well, FEMA controls this. They control the floodplains. And Anybody that does anything within the floodplain, you've got to get special permission, you've got to get engineered plans, anything you do. Sadly, the county that I'm in apparently doesn't believe in that. Several people have gone in and put in culvert pipe because they wanted to get from one side of a property that they owned. They wanted to get from one side to the other. So they took it upon themselves to get corrugated culvert pipe and put culverts in. And what they basically did, anytime you run something from open ground into the and run it into a culvert, you're blocking the flow. There's just no two ways about it. The flow of the water is going to be blocked. And that's what's happened here. And in just 40 years' time, this property never sat in the floodplain. And in 40 years' time, it is now, the floodplain now runs almost all the way across the property, which makes part of our property useless. And if you say anything to the county, they don't have enough balls to stand up for them, to anybody out here, and they allow a lot of what's going on. Of course, a lot of it depends on who you are and how you get by with what you're doing, which chaps me to no end, because what it does is it devaluates anybody that's got property that the 100-year floodplain starts creeping up into. You've lost your property. All of this area that's in front of me now is in a 100-year floodplain. You are not allowed to build in it. You're not allowed to touch the floor right here of this creek. You're really not allowed to do anything with it. And it comes with penalties and so forth if you do it without a permit. But yet some people are allowed to do things without a permit, which just, there again, it's like I said, I think it depends on who you are and what they let you get by with. If I was to do it, I'd probably get fined. I'd be in hot water. But what it has done is it's taken away the usefulness of some of this land. In other words, can't ever build anything here again. Years ago, there was a mobile home that sat on this part right here. You couldn't put a mobile home back here now without going through a whole lot of engineered. I think you've got to have a pad that's so many feet above the floodplain to prevent the mobile home, house, or whatever from flooding. And then most likely you're not going to be able to get insurance, or the insurance is going to be so expensive that you can't afford it. But that's what happens when people down below you start damming up creeks and drainage areas for their own benefit. It shouldn't be allowed. And of course, the only way to fight it now is if you went and hired an attorney, and that's not going to happen. you end up with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and just to get back what's rightfully your usable land. And I find that that's not right. And that's like a lot of the YouTube videos that I see. A lot of people, they buy property, then complain that somebody won't let them do something, or they won't give them the rights, an easement across something. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is the amount of taxes that you pay on property. If you don't own property, it's harder to understand it, because the taxes you pay high, extremely high taxes in the first place. Even on agriculture, you have an agriculture exemption. It costs, even though you're not paying taxes on the land itself because you have the ag exemption. In order to get that ag exemption and retain it, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to run an operation in order to qualify for the ag exemption. So you're not getting by freely. It's costing you, whether it's costing you in property tax, or whether it's costing you in retaining your ag exemption. That costs, the expenses there. And the expenses are getting higher and higher every day. Expenses don't go away. If anything, they increase. But anyway, that's my take on why I think that they moved the creek itself, the name creek. I mainly think it's for developers, people that want to develop the property. I mean, it's obvious you can't build in a named creek or in a named river. They're protected, and just like this creek and its history should be protected, it's not being protected, and it's not being protected at property owners' expense. It's like I said, whenever something like this goes on, somebody's going to lose, and it's most likely the property owner downstream. I got two different projects I got to complete right here. One of them is this pile of dirt that's in front of us. That's got to be knocked down. And this is that area for anybody that has followed along. I started clearing this back corner of the property over here, and I've got all of this brush and tree limbs and undergrowth that that are removed off of it. So I've got to remove every bit of this, clean up inside here. What I'd like to do is get this where I can start cutting it and keep it cut. And keep it cut with the tractor. See if we can push some of this back into place. We dug up some electrical lines right here, and the mistake was we didn't put it back. So now I've got piles of dirt that I've got to move. One of the worst things they have to do is they have to work underneath, or to do any work underneath these low-hanging oak limbs. For one, oak is extremely strong, and most of the time, if you hit one of the trees, you're going to end up bending up hydraulics or busting something off. Got to be very careful working under this stuff. Need to transfer some of this dirt down here anyway. Just gotta make sure we don't nail anything. Not too long ago, I started cleaning this property up. This property hadn't been cleaned in a number of years, and then a lot of junk was left on it. And then when we took it over, I decided I didn't want this stuff on it anymore. So what I've done, gone around and picked up all of the scrap steel, junk steel. I've got it all piled up. I'm gonna get have a steel company bring in, or recycling company bring in a dumpster, and we're going to load all this stuff up and get rid of it. Besides that, I've got a whole bunch of brush that's got to be burned. We're currently in a burn ban, so we can't burn. So a lot of projects are somewhat on hold until we're able to complete some of them. That we are working on trying to clean the place up, get it back to where it's presentable. And seems like every farm property has got a dump or a dumping spot somewhere on it where people just, instead of properly disposing, it's a lot easier just to dump it somewhere and keep dumping it until you make that decision to try to clean it up. And that's what happened here. A lot of grass and stuff mixed in with this. I think I've got there used to be a concrete pipe here, it looks like. Let's see if I can dig it out. Dig up next to it, see if we can knock it over. I think there was a clothesline pole here at one time. There we go. Now we don't have to worry about that anymore. excavator starts scraping this flat. Get some of these limbs out of the way. Okay, we'll turn the camera back on just a little bit.